Now we've seen that development in its various forms is often influencing migration. But at the same time, migration also has an impact on development. And this is true both for those countries which are losing people and those countries which are gaining people due to migration. Let's look at those countries which are losing people first. The advantages for those countries are that fewer people need to be fed and housed, and that there is a reduced pressure on jobs and resources. This is particularly relevant for overpopulated countries. In an overpopulated country with a very large population density, there is often a very strong competition for jobs, and it's sometimes difficult to find, for example, natural resources to feed the entire population. So for those countries, losing people is actually an advantage because it reduces the pressure on jobs, on living space and resources in general. Another very important advantage for countries losing people is that migrants often send part of their incomes, which they generate in their new country, back home to their families in order to support their families. This is very often the case when migrants are moving to other places due to economic reasons. So people emigrating from poor countries to richer countries where they can earn higher incomes. In that case, very often part of their families are left home. So maybe just one household member will go abroad to have a better paid job, and that person sends back money to his or her family to support the family. And this is what we call remittances. This is money sent back home to the country of origin to support, for example, family members who are still living back in the home country. And in some countries, these remittances are an important part of national income, especially in some very poor countries. Now, of course, migration also has negative effects on those countries which are losing people. First of all, there is a loss of labor. The country will lose some of the youngest and most able members of its society, and because of that, there might be a shortage of labor. Also, the loss of young men, who are very often a large group among migrants, might create an unbalanced population structure. Very often, those people who are migrating are those with a high education and with good skills. That's what we call brain drain. The most able persons in a society are leaving because they see the chance to earn more income in other countries. There might also be a division of families, which can have negative social consequences if, for example, young men are leaving the country and having to leave their wives and children back home, which can create social problems. The elderly population also usually remains at home, so there might be a higher death rate. Now let's look at those countries who are gaining people, those countries who are the destinations of migrants. For those countries, there are also both advantages and disadvantages of migration. First of all, the advantages. Of course, there will be a gain in labor. There will be more people who can work. And when there is a higher supply of labor, when there are more people who can work, usually this will have a negative effect on salaries, because there's more competition among those people who are seeking a job, so companies can provide lower salaries. So there will be a supply of cheap labor in the country who is gaining people. This might help to overcome labor shortages. Many times in highly developed countries there are shortages of labor because the economy is growing so big that the home population cannot provide enough labor anymore. So in some cases, countries are actually actively promoting immigration in order to get more labor into the country. Depending on the situation in the country, governments might promote immigration of unskilled workers or immigration of highly skilled workers. It just depends on the need of the economy in the country. Both might be motivations for governments to promote immigration. And both can be positive for the economy of that country. If the economy needs more unskilled laborers, unskilled workers, workers who are working in the construction sector, for example, workers who are working in the service sector, like working as waiters and waitresses, for example, they might promote immigration of unskilled workers. But other countries who are in dire need of highly skilled workers who can work in research, who can work in highly developed industries, they might promote immigration of highly skilled workers. Of course, another advantage for countries gaining people is that immigration usually creates more cultural diversity. This is a positive social effect of immigration. If you have a high share of migrants living in a country, there will be more diversity. There will be restaurants from different countries. There will be cultural activities of persons from different backgrounds. So this can have a very positive effect on the overall society. Of course, immigration can also have negative effects on those countries who are receiving migrants. Very often there are language barriers that need to be overcome, and that might be difficult in the beginning because very often persons who are moving to another country are not familiar or at least not fluent in the local language. There can also be tensions between migrants and the host population due to ethnic differences, due to cultural differences, due to religious differences. This can sometimes lead to serious conflicts and even violence. And sometimes immigrants may also compete for jobs with the host population. That is the case when there is a high unemployment rate in the host country. In that case, those people who are unemployed, who are already unemployed, very often view immigrants negatively because they think that the immigrants are taking away their jobs. So this competition for jobs can then again create conflicts and tensions between migrants, between immigrants and the host population.